Boker Tov, good morning. Today is Friday, April 1st. Not April Fool's Day, it's just April 1st. Erev Shabbat, Parshat Tazria. Tonight is Rosh Chodesh. Tomorrow we're reading 3 Sifrei Torah. The portion of Tazria, the portion of a Parshat HaChodesh, and the Rosh Chodesh laning as well. So it's an exciting triple Torah day. Parshat Tazria treats, for the most part, treats is the wrong word. It deals with the experience of tzara'at, which we'll just call tzara'at. It's the skin affliction that we understand to be a divinely visited experience on the flesh of an individual as a result of, we don't know, it's not clear. But the hint that's there, and there are many other hints, is that on the long list that the sages give to us for what might bring it about, the top of that list is Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara, speaking ill of others. We know this from the fact that when Moshe speaks, that it says that Bnei Yisrael that they will not lo yaminu li, if I had the puzzle correct, right? They will not believe me. Tells God that in his back and forth with God at the burning bush. That God says to put your hand inside the bosom of your clothing, and he pulls it out, and it is mitzoraat kashalag. It is full of tzarat like snow. And God says that they will end up believing you. And then when Miriam has spoken ill of Moshe later in the Torah, towards the end of the storyline of her life, actually not. It's not the end of her storyline at all, but in Bamidbar, let me put it that way. So there, the Torah also tells us that she has tzara'at. So we associated tzara'at with such issues, with what you speak about others. And so when the Torah says tamei yikra, that this individual has to walk around and say, I'm tamei, the understanding is it's important that he actually allow his lips to say those words. I bring this up because it's a parsha, but I also bring it up in the context of what we know. We speak Lashon Hara, about Lashon Hara, and then we kind of laugh. Oh, Lashon Hara, blah, blah, blah. We make a big deal about it, and it's more than just something to make a big deal about. In terms of how do we tell whispers about others. It goes beyond even the whispers. It's not a small matter, Lashon Hara. It actually hits on something which I think is really critical, and that is how much control do we have over the words that come off our lips? I bring this up because everyone's talking in the midst of all the things that have happened in this world about two events over the last weekend. One is the president's speech, which was a very important speech. I had not listened to it all, but I'm told, right, and the reports are, that was a very important speech about what it means to defend democracy, and then ended with an ad lib, we are told, an ad lib on what was on the written speech, in which he says, for God's sake, something like that, a man cannot remain in power. And that has overshadowed everything, and indeed created perhaps a great fear of intensifying a crisis that is already a pretty intense crisis. Number one. The next night, Chris Rock at the Oscars made a joke about Jada Smith and her bald head. G.I. Jane 2, which he said, oh, well, no one laughed much, so he said, okay, it's a pretty bad joke, and people who let it commented, yeah, it's a 25-year-old reference to an old movie. And then Will Smith got on the stage and slapped him and yelled, cursed at him for speaking about his wife. And we'll start with the latter one for the moment. Back and forth this week, everyone's all caught up in this, and that overshadowed the rest of the Oscars, they say. And the back and forth this past week about Will Smith's actions, the 50-50 defense, I'm told, that was there for him or not for him, And now the tide shifting in Hollywood to greater condemnation and an investigation and perhaps some type of discipline, which might include him not being able to vote in the Academy for a year, if that's what the discipline means. And right, so it definitely goes to that old teaching, which is right, use your words and don't use your hands. And so as soon as he struck him, he lost. Okay, I believe that. I believe that that's a big problem, and we could look at that. But somehow or another, missed here is what I think is the core message that comes from Parshat Tazria, which is what we allow our mouths to say. Now, again, Will Smith should have stood up and quoted Parshat Tazria, or stood up and said, "Hey, man, that's not right. You've crossed a line. Please don't do that." And that would have been a very powerful thing for him to do. But instead, you have what I heard, a reference on one news program that, in terms of the worry about the blowback and the impact of what transpired, is, stand-up comedians are worried that now hecklers might actually get up on stage and hit them. And I'm saying to myself, what's wrong with everybody here? The core message should be like, wow, maybe stand-up comedians, who I love comedy, and I love even sometimes a subtle mocking of things, right? You know me long enough, I think, to know that good humor is of interest to me. Whether I actually practice it or not is another question. But why would it be okay to make fun of somebody in the audience? Even if you say somehow, and I'm not here, right, you'll say that everybody in Hollywood knows that they are by showing up, they're putting themselves out there for some mockery. Why is it okay to get up on stage and you're 2 minutes of giving an award and you're supposed to make some jokes, but then just to blurt something out, also unscripted? You look out around the room and say, "Here's something to make fun of. Look at that," and it comes into your head briefly and right out your mouth. And right out your mouth. And that's a lesson that's like now lost. Right? That's what Will Smith, covered. It wasn't the Oscars that has now been somehow tainted, and the good feelings of the Oscar by the slap. It's actually that message which is there, and the president. That's our concern, right? The president of the United States blurts something out like that. Why is it? It's just not. If it comes into your head, it has to stay there for a while before it comes out. Now, there is a possibility, as some suggested, this was a planned, additional statement beyond his, the written words. Maybe it was, and it certainly was something that came not from his head, from his heart, right? But if there's any important lesson we take from the Parshat to those two events of last weekend, it is be careful of those words that come out your mouth. We have lips, not just to help us frame words, but to keep them in until it's time to say them. Okay, I'm not here to chastise the president, and I'm not really here to offer a larger critique of comedy or the entertainment industry, as much as to let it be a reminder to ourselves of the power of our words and the necessity always to pause and to think. And we might lose the joke because we did so. And maybe that's better, because the person on the other side will not take offense. We might lose some of the drama of the impulse moment, but maybe we'll be better off, perhaps, because we will not have further intensified an already terrible situation. And maybe we'll help ensure that our relationships with the people around us will be bettered because we took pause, the extra pause, before we spoke. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom.